What's up, everybody from DM Scotty's Craft? Thanks for checking out my video. This is my first craft. I never thought I would do anything like this, but it turns out that hot glue dries pretty fast, and so does acrylic paint, and those are both good things for myself, who I guess we'll just call the impatient crafter. I wrote a story that continues on from the Lost Mines of Phandelver for characters levels probably 5 to 7, 5 to 8, and it has some maritime components to it. So I wanted to get to work on building a ship for a key part of the storyline, and once I got started I found I was having quite a bit of fun with it and used some of Scotty's tips for building bedrolls or beds and other painting tips from those in the forum, so thanks to everyone who had posted, and here's how I got everything worked out for this ship. Found some plans for a model ship for like a Byzantine ship online. They were written in Russian, but I could pretty much figure out how to cut out the keel and the ribs and numbering and how to line them up to be able to form basically the skeleton of the ship. You can see here it's just all foam core with some of those smallest craft sticks, like a matchsticks in between the ribs for some support, all done with hot glue. And then another deck up top, also made of foam core to be able to create the two playable layers I was going for. Even those nautical boat making terms I just used were new to me during this project. For the outside, for the planking, I just used cardboard cardstock, real thin cardboard with cardstock on the outside. You might recognize this from those super play castles that everybody in the forum picked up. To get the curves right along the hull, I had to cut some interesting shapes and do a little bit of bending to get it to line up correctly. I used cardstock to line the inside of the hull as well, basically I think the inside of like a Triscuit's box. But where the wood was going to be exposed above the deck line, I wanted to use some of the smaller coffee stirrer craft sticks. And I used basically just spackle, like for drywall to seal in the gaps, so when I painted it, everything looked a lot tighter. And here's the outside with the same spackle on there to fill in the gaps between some of the planks. I used those same coffee stirrers I was talking about with a pattern that repeated about every 4 to start building the upper deck, and made a hole for a hatch to be able to, for the players to move down into the second level. Here's the complete deck. Apologies for my shoddy phone camera work. I was pretty pleased with the way that came out. I sanded everything down flat. And I wanted to make the quarter deck, the kind of rear captain's quarters, just bent some basic cardboard around and bent some of those same coffee stirrers, soaked them in water and then let them dry, bent like that between a couple Pyrex dishes overnight, so that I could make this piece, which is just all 3 different size craft sticks. The thinner coffee stirrers, full-size craft sticks, and the little matchsticks. Wanted to put some doors on there to divide the quarters into 2, maybe captain and crew. I intentionally made the doors 2 different sizes for part of the story. The captain's a larger individual. I'm really happy with this set of steps. I'd recommend folks do this. I basically just drilled out with the smallest drill that I had and then kind of connected 2 holes that I drilled on either side. And then just like a regular staircase would be built, I pushed the coffee stirrer planks in between the 2 bigger craft sticks on the edges. I'm really happy with the way this staircase came out. In the earlier plans that I showed, there was a picture of what I think were ballistas. I'm not really sure, but it gave me an idea to try to make some. Just made the stands out of a couple different sizes of craft sticks together with some handy tin snips to snip the wood. There you can see the bottom of one of the ballistas being the wider craft stick with one of the coffee stirrers bent around. Again, same trick to bend overnight in warm water and just get some black thread to tie it, hold it that kind of bent angle, and put a little stopper, basically a pin for working with fabric as the weapon, and then, just a pretty simple gear, again made out of some craft sticks that the players can hang on to or wind up to load the device. Here's everything finally put together, starting to take shape. Really liking the looks of it so far. I think the wood looks pretty good. It's just going to be how can I get the cardboard to look as good as the natural wood there looks. So I made a yellow ochre basically out of bright yellow and folding in a little red and a little blue. And of course you got a black vomit to get it started out, and then I based it with the yellow ochre that I made I was thinking it looks like the beginning of wood, but even after I put the lighter color, darker and lighter color browns as highlights on the cardboard, it still didn't look anything like what I think of with deck wood. I still went through the whole outside of the ship, and I think it looked okay as far as a kind of rough job. But I ended up using a 2-in-1 like urethane and stain combination I had laying around. And on the craft sticks, it really looked great, so I figured I'd try it on the cardboard as well. And actually, it came out looking pretty good. That's just lines and pen drawn to kind of show divisions of where the boards might be on that very bottom piece of cardboard. I think it came out looking great. So I went to paint the outside. I always had in my head, and as part of the story, it was going to be red, so I mixed together a couple different reds to base it in a kind of darker wine and then show some highlights. Using red and then a terracotta to kind of bring out some of the different tones within the red paint that may have aged through the years. I really wanted to do real rigging. I thought if I was a player, I'd probably want to cut some rope. So I found a model ship store online and bought this rope. It's about 0.8 millimeters, and it was like $5 for plenty of it. And I drilled some metal wire anchors into various points on the hull to be able to tie down what's called a yard arm, I now know. And that's where the sail is going to hang from, and just anchor it down to the deck there. I wanted to color the sail. I knew just white cotton wouldn't be right, so I made some coffee and some tea. I just like the golder tones of the tea a little bit better than the coffee. I tried both. That's the tea on the left and the coffee on the right. And this is what the sail looks like compared to the original white sail. My girlfriend was kind enough to hem the edges for me, which allowed me to put in some wire. I wanted to make the sail look what they call a spool, and I was thinking about starch or something along those lines, but I actually realized that probably just having wire in the hems is a lot better solution than trying to starch it in place. I coiled up some of that same wire and then snipped it into circles so I could run it through the sail and then hang it from the yard arm. That's what they call the perpendicular arm that connects to the mast. And when I was researching Byzantine ships, I actually found that a lot of times they have what's called a lateen sail instead of a square sail, and that's what I went with here. I actually have the yard arm suspended from those ropes that you can see with the block and tackle. I thought if I was playing on the ship, I might want to cut the line eventually and see what happens if the sail falls down, the yard arm comes crashing down. I would not, if I were going to do this again, make the block and tackle. You can see that it's kind of one of the most disorganized parts of this whole thing. It's just difficult to get them spaced out right and then have the tension of the rope on them. They're just 3 craft sticks I made circles out of, glued together with kind of lower temp glue to create some space, and then I ran the rigging rope, the model ship rigging rope, between them, and then again tied them down to those anchors on the side of the ship. I think these look okay enough for me to leave them. It's an interesting little bit of depth to the image overall, but again, I wouldn't recommend that anyone else try it that way I did it. I should note that that part of the deck railing is intentional. It's part of the overall story that led me to build this thing in the first place, just like the 2 different sized doors. I found out there's something out there called quarter rudders, or basically rudders that are on either side of the back of the ship, so I just made them with all 3 different size craft sticks together. So that way somebody riding on top of that rear quarter deck would be able to steer the ship instead of the normal wheel that goes through the hull. So there it is, all painted up with the ballistas, the lateen sail, the wine color paint, which actually fades as you go further down the hull. I'm really happy with the project. It took me quite a long time, but I don't craft every day, and it being my first project, I did a lot of things the wrong way first before I figured out the right way. Hope you guys like it, and I'd love to see maybe your next nautical theme project. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care.